Making it up as I go. That's the Paul Show. Hi, my name's Paul. Welcome to my show. Today we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons. So we're going to recap things we tweaked from our last planning session, and we're going to talk about the things that we've got in store for our players today. A number of things happened in our previous session. A number of things went very well. Introducing the quest log is one of those things. It made some goals feel a little bit more tangible and give some direction or overall drive to go out and discover the other things in the world, and gives them a place to return to. Some of the functions of the room were restored as predicted or enticed last session, wherein the quest progress calculator and the distance speech delivery system were both finished, and the goal of getting the perpetual fish food generator going went very smoothly. They encountered I had in here I decided to populate this little water area within the base with aerodynamic fish, such that when they jump out of the water they create like a whistling noise at a different pitch each time, depending on the arc and the general shape and size of the fish itself. And so they'll have time to stew over how to harness that resource, and I'm gonna accept whatever my players end up coming up with, just a problem for them to solve on some degree or another, and they've already made progress towards doing that. My artificer had used some magical tinkering to create a type of object, and that's that. Another thing we changed from last time, we ended up inserting an extra combat encounter here at the base. A wild gorgon chasing a displacer beast was about to trample through this hobgoblin camp, and my players rushed to prevent that from happening, and they kept him safe. Great job. And then another thing to note was we were actually short one of the actual players today. However, for the sake of canon or continuity, the player's character still existed, and so during combat he would act in whatever fashion the players would ask, whether that's casting healing word or what have you, acid splash, or the occasional fireball. And that's that. Our travel went spectacularly. Because we used the displacer beast here, we ended up going with a minotaur skeleton to supplement the boulette, but it was still successful in getting my players to short rest, and then our action scene with the shambling mound went very well as well. Felt very threatening. One thing we did manipulate about the shambling mound was its speed as well as its HP, to give it a little more oomph. One thing that I've been trying to do, or we've been planning for today, is challenging my artificer more than challenging my monk and my wizard, at least in terms of combat, because their thing is just built really well, I guess. It's very powerful. I don't know. That being said, the travel went very well. The shambling mound was overall a success. Felt very threatening, even though it's only a challenge rating 5 monster with 14 AC. And that was our travel, and by the time they had arrived at the ranch, our players had decided to make camp literally just outside. It was like 1 in the morning when we decided to cut it off, so I wasn't really ready to introduce anything going on over in this area at the moment. I did read the introduction to Longbottom Ranch, but I've written out another handout in order to introduce them to the session today, so that's what changed from what we had planned out. Today we've only got 2 objectives. We've got Objective A, Objective B, and that's really about it. We could split up Objective B into maybe 2 or 3 objectives, but it's all part of the same narrative thread, so I feel like it's one objective. So Objective A is literally just to recap what had happened. wherein we talk about the quest log that we introduced to them, as well as keeping track of it, informing them, hey, you completed this one, you completed that one, great job, you made some progress on this one, do you guys remember that, here's what happened, and then informing them that they did travel, and so they're going to need to return in 17 days to feed the fish again, because they haven't finished the fish food generator quite yet. So until they finish that, I'm going to try to put a smaller timer on how long they can be away from this base of operations, so to speak. And I feel like 17 days is a pretty good chunk of time. It'll make my players feel like they need to get something done with each day. Hopefully give them that drive to not dilly-dally for too long. That being said, that's the recap, and we'd go on to Objective B, wherein we read this a little handout here. If it'll load, that'd be nice. Let's see. Hello? Hello? It's not loading. I'm gonna reload the page real quick. But more or less we're going to tell them what they wake up to. I'm going to have them do a passive perception. They're just going to inform me of it, even though I've already taken stock of what the passive perceptions are. I think it adds to the feel of the game when I ask for it. But this is literally just to like wake them up and intro them to whatever they want to do that day. And so they're going to wake up to the sound of combat, and there's going to be a rot troll that more or less runs amok on the ranch, and it's going to be solved by Eustace here and Courage. They're going to have taken out the monster by the time the players get over there, or any of the players. Whoever's first, doesn't matter. It's just to wake them up. That's quite literally it, and then introduce them to Eustace, Courage, Egan, and Muriel to some extent or another. My estimation is that they're going to be here about 5 days. I have no idea if that's going to be accurate or not, but for this area, so they're going to walk up to the site of the dead monster. Wait for the thing to pass there. I'll just read this out. You all wake up to the sound of the ranch being attacked by what could only be described as a troll. As you come onto the scene, final cries of pain come from the necrotic troll as Courage sinks its teeth into its neck and Eustace pulls a pike out of its chest. Eustace calls out, "Now I don't know where y'all popped out from, so keep your distance from this varmint." He steps off the troll's corpse and sticks his pike in the ground, and he looks over you guys for a moment cautiously and says, "Y'all ain't some of them and he's interrupted or distracted by Courage walking up and getting Eustace's attention, wagging his tail, licks his nose, and kind of just gives a nod of approval to Eustace, and he continues to speak at that point, his focus returning to him, saying, "Never mind that. Seems Courage here thinks y'all check out, and that's good enough for me. You lot are invited to dinner. Best bring your appetites, though, 'cause Muriel's cooking is divine. That said, dinner is quite a ways away. The sun's only just popped up, so if you plan to stay, I'm gonna put you to work." He kneels down to Courage and rubs his head over and scratches behind his ears, and asks him to let Muriel know that there will be guests for dinner tonight. So Courage runs off a second later to the ranch house, and Eustace pulls his pike out of the ground and says, "Y'all follow me now. So tell me a bit about yourselves. Knowing your names would help at least." And at that point, my players would be instructed more or less by the NPC to introduce themselves, at which point I'm going to kind of improv whatever Eustace says at that point. For a couple of moments, it give my players each an opportunity to ask a question or two, depending on how interested they really are. At which point Eustace says, "Well, it's nice to meet y'all. Now that we're here, I'd like you to meet my right-hand man, Egan." And he introduces you to Egan, with everyone standing in a circle outside of the semicircle outside of the shed. and that would be this shed here outside of the wood shed. Pull this thing back up. Stand in a semicircle outside of the shed. So Marwin, you, Zareth, and Egan are going to do maintenance on tools here in the shed and in the equipment shed down the road. Jariah and Kai, Courage, and I will be going to fix the fence where the critter broke through. Egan, make sure you, when you're done, you bring those two out there with you. And bring some lunch with you. So they're going to spend the next 4 hours. I'm going to do like a group check to fix fence/equipment. And more or less that's going to cover the 4-hour duration that they're fixing equipment or fixing up the fence, depending on which player's perspective you're looking at it from. And in that time there'll be any questions they want to ask to any of my NPCs and learn about them or the world at large, because Egan is a bit of a resource in that. Egan Harrownest is actually from Wardwool, if I recall correctly. I think I gave some history there. Where's Wardwool? Here we are. So there's a bunch of stuff going on here, and I've been using a lot of what I wrote down already to kind of populate most of the people here, or the families dynamics that exist here. So you can see I've got a place called House Harrownest. There's also a place called the Longbottoms, or at least like a house where they reside, because Muriel and Eustace are an older couple, so their kids, I imagined, lived in Wardwool. So whatever they make there is actually going to supporting them over there. So the Longbottoms don't actually have a whole lot of gold, although they do have a solid trading relationship with the Wardwool, the township of Wardwool here. And I can make stuff up more than that, but that's just giving you a little context. Egan is connected to Wardwool as well as the ranchers there. And then Egan also has ties to Lakeside, as he's interacted with our librarian here, also known as Harris Skellig. And Harris lent him a book, whatever book that is. I'm going to try to make up on the fly. It's probably best that I make that up beforehand. So I'm going to write that down. It's something I need to do in the meantime. Make book name and info. So whatever, populate to some extent whatever content exists in the book, or just be ready to have a theme for it, so I can make something up on the spot and not have it contradict too many things. And so we're gonna make a name for the book and that, just trying to keep track here. And so we're back to the ranch. So that 4-hour portion of time of doing some repairs and such is just to give my players an opportunity to interact and learn about the environment. Past that though, Egan and my two players are going to go interact with Muriel. She's going to give them lunch. They're going to go to the south of the ranch here, wherein we're going to have our first encounter to some extent, wherein they're going to finish fixing up the fence. They're going to finish lunch, so technically full rested, hopefully, at this point. By hopefully, I mean, yeah, they're going to be full rested because they just woke up, they did a little bit of work, they had lunch. Courage is going to growl at something in the distance, and they're going to see a figure. And it's only going to be this one Shadow Wraith warrior. The Gloom Weaver here is going to be intimidating because it is a challenge rating 9, but its AC is only 17 max with the mage armor, and it's only got about like 120 HP or so. I could actually pull that up and show you right here. The Gloom Weaver has 104 HP on average. Point being, it's more of a solo encounter, and the Sword Wraith is kind of to give them a signal that something's amiss. So they could be interacting with some of the cows, the pigs, horses. I don't know what animal is going to exist there. If my players ask about llamas, I'm cool with llamas existing there. Point being, they're going to be interacting. Courage is going to signal that something is wrong, and potentially even bark to give that hostile tension to it. At which point the Gloom Weaver is going to initiate combat, and so the reason they're not seeing him is because he's casted Invisibility, lasts up to an hour, and then he's going to cast Hypnotic Pattern. So he's got one other spell left, which I think is going to be Witch Bolt, but it could be any number of these. One thing to note is that he does have a couple of cantrips and such, Chill Touch, Eldritch Blast, both very potent. I think Eldritch Blast is probably a better one to be doing than the Chill Touch, just because that's a ranged spell attack, and it's only one, and you get the 3d8, whereas Eldritch Blast you have to roll the attack 3 separate times, and that's mainly because it's a 12th level spellcaster, and you operate off of that. Yes, so the combat with the Gloom Weaver could go a number of ways, and would thusly set the tone for most of the rest of the session, because the purpose of today and the purpose of the ranch itself is to introduce and get them to explore the southwest portion of this map. All of this area is going to be revealed at some point that day, and all of this area. They're going to get a glimpse of the Emerald Keep. They're going to know that it exists, and hopefully put 2 and 2 together to realize that it's like a Mind Flayer keep, or they could explore a little bit further. That depends on player comfortability and how far they get each day. At least for this first day, I'm going to populate it with a lot of different combat. If they decide to turn back early, I'm just going to save it for the next day. They get a little bit further that time. So I should probably have different encounters planned out as they get closer. For now, though, I've only got 5 encounters planned out. This being the one they encounter at the fence while Courage the dog is still there, this ancient silver dragon, to potentially protect them if need be. Obviously, the dragon's trying to be undercover. However, if my players get into trouble, I don't have a problem having Courage step in and frightening the Gloom Weaver off. It could add to the narrative and then thusly make Courage a target. But that's really up to what happens during the session. So that's Combat 1. We got a Gloom Weaver and a Sword Wraith Warrior. I'm interested to see how that goes. I think my players would handle it pretty swiftly, unless something crazy happens. I know the... if we go back to the stat blocks here, the Armor of Agathis is really potent, but it doesn't affect range attacks. So this guy doesn't really have much to deal with range attacks unless he's rushing down the source of it. So I'm going to have this guy target my Artificer first and foremost. And hopefully that'll add a different dynamic to the way combat typically goes. I find that my Monk and my Wizard are a lot weaker and a lot less effective in combat than my Artificer. And I think that's just because of the approach in building their characters. I don't know what it is, but I want to make sure that they're all getting their asses handed to them equally. And so that's the first encounter there, the Gloom Weaver, the Sword Wraith Warrior, and then we could go back to the encounter builder, load encounter. I've got 4 more combats for them to encounter, and that's only going to get them to the ravine. So on the map here, at which point I would reveal about up to here in terms of the Fog of War stuff. I'll reveal that, and so it'd cut like around here is how I would describe it, and they'll see that there's like a massive forest growing on top of this thing, so maybe there's some cool stuff in the forest above it too. I have no idea. I could make that up later on if I think it's cool. But they're going to be running into those 5 encounters at their leisure, of course, but the goal here is to entice them to explore that area and discover the next one of the other objectives that exists in the world for them. And we're going to go to the DM screen here. This is an incredible tool, by the way. Shout out to 5e Tools. Absolutely incredible access to information and different ways to organize it. What we want to look at is doing treasure and stuff, like a treasure generation. More or less, we're gonna roll a d10, I'm pretty sure. Let's see here. We're gonna do treasure. Information buffering. Ha. Books. All books. Player's handbook. There we go. Adventuring. Point being, I can't figure it. I can't find the source of information now, but I'll write it down for later. We want to be doling out some goods or items that my players could either sell or take advantage of in some fashion as they're encountering these things. I don't want it to be fruitless in that sense. So, make a loot table is one of my objectives before the session on Monday. And that would really be about the session. I could show you the rest of these encounters here. References, not actions. We want to go to the bestiary, and that's where we access the encounter builder here. Let's see. Yeah, that's the first combat. It's an Armonite and a Gauth. I think that's going to be a fun one. Just because the Armonite is a pretty fast thing. If we look here, its speed is 60, so there's no chance they're going to outrun it, and then the Gauth is hopefully going to suppress a good amount of things going on. That being said, its I-rays are random, so we're going to be rolling for these things each time. It does get a bite attack though, so it could go for either or, but the I-rays are cooler if you ask me, with the threat of the Armonite present. I think this is going to be a fun one, given that the ACs are kind of average, 16 and 15, and between them there's, 67 plus 84, that's about 140, 150 HP to burn through, which I think is going to be pretty quick. And that's the second encounter we've got planned for him. Back to the builder here, we'll load another one, Recon Travel 2. We'll go back to the stat blocks and we can show you these guys, the Bodak and 5 phase spiders. So for this encounter, we're actually going to be taking advantage of our DM screen here, wherein we're handling a large group of mobs, and we're just trying to make them feel slightly threatening. So if my players do above 10 damage on any one of these, I'm going to just subtract one monster from the group. They nail that phase spider. Its AC is only 13, so if they fail to hit it, I think that's kind of deserved. I might even buff that, depending on how quickly it feels like they're being taken care of. That being said, we're using this mechanic where if you know what the minimum die roll is, that's how many you need in the group for only one of them to guaranteed hit, so you don't have to be rolling die. You just take a look at the average rolls. So for this phase spider here, it's a +4 to hit. So if I want to hit the players guaranteed, my max AC to break would be 20, right? So if they need to roll a total of 20, or it would be minimum roll 16, because 16 is +4. So I'd only need 4 attackers in a group. So in this case, the first 2 times they attack are going to be guaranteed damage, although it's not even that much. They're going to make a Constitution saving throw and maybe take 5 damage. The average damage for the other one, 20. I don't think they're going to fail that con save though. And that's really about it. I could tell you about the other encounters here, but I feel like it's just going to be smoother to tell you what those monsters are and where you can find them, because this resource is great. Check out 5e Tools, the bestiary. It has been an immense help to me. Load encounter. That's the third one. So then we've got a Warlock and a Minotaur. If we go back to the stat blocks here, the Minotaur is found on page 223 in the Monster Manual, and the Warlock of the Great Old One is found in Volo's Guide to Monsters, page 220. I think it's going to be a fun encounter. There's not too much AC here to really protect the HP of these guys, so it's going to be a quick thing, just like any others. We're going to load our final encounter here, which is actually a 3-piece of not too challenging of monsters, but I feel like it's important to lower the challenge rating if the action economy is a little bit more equal. So we're going to load the encounter. We're going to go back to, oh, did not want to do that, but such is life. So we got our Flame Skull, Intellect Devourer, and an Umber Hulk. Monsters Guide 292 for the Umber Hulk, Monster Manual 191, and Monster Manual 134. All in the Monster Manual, believe it or not. That's pretty cool. So the Flame Skull is going to provide some ranged damage. The Umber Hulk is going to provide some more immediate pressure for the melee portion of it, and the Intellect Devourer is going to suppress either my Artificer or my Wizard, potentially. It's only a DC 12, so this thing is going to be in the back by the Flame Skull. The Umber Hulk and the Flame Skull present a much more immediate threat. Unless they want to get rid of the Intellect Devourer right away, they could probably do that. I think I'm actually going to buff the HP for this thing to about 50 or 60, so it takes a couple hits and lasts a little bit longer in the combat. I don't think having one person make 3 different saves is going to be too terrible. But thing is here, I don't think stunned means it's incapacitated. Yep. So one thing that can be spooky is the body thief, which could be pretty crazy, but you never know. You never know. I might not decide to use that, or maybe if it feels dramatic, maybe I will try to use it. If I doubt it's going to work, though. Intelligence contest. Attack rolls against the creature. Okay, so it can still make its intelligence save. Yeah, cool. I don't think it's gonna be too crazy. I don't think the body thief ability is going to work on it, just because this thing's intelligence is 12, and the other one, my Artificer and my Wizard both have 20 intelligence as far as I'm aware. Yeah, this guy's got 20, and my Artificer also 20. I doubt that they're going to get body thiefed, but that would be pretty fucking crazy. I'm not afraid of kind of dunking on my players. That being said, that's all we've got planned, and we'll see how it goes. My name's Paul. I've been making this up as I go. Thanks for watching. See you next time.